That brings us to our discussion agenda with Lexington County Ordinance Plan number 23-15 in Exhibit J. Dr. Ross.
Thank you, Madam Chair, members of our board and our community. We have our Director of Community Development for Lexington County, Robbie Derrick, is here to talk to us about a new ordinance in Lexington County. Mr. Derrick.
Thank you, Dr. Ross. Thank you, members of the board. Lynn Sturkey, our county administrator, sends his apologies this evening. He cannot attend. He's a little under the weather, so he does regret that he cannot attend tonight. But this evening for you, I know on your agenda you've mentioning ordinances, Ordinance 2315, which is a concurrency ordinance that County Council has adopted as a pending ordinance. I'm going to go over just a little bit of detail about our department, what's kind of led County Council up to some of the ordinances and things we're actually looking to amend with our development code standards. And I'll include a section on Ordinance 2314 and 15 and kind of give you an idea of what direction and what support we're looking for, at least from school districts. And just a little background with Lexington County Community Development. On your screen, we cover a variety of items within our development standards within the county, our zoning, landscape, and open space, subdivision regulations. We handle our stormwater management regulations, our flood damage and prevention, building safety and inspections, and we also encompass our community development block grant program, which is a HUD-funded program. Just to kind of paint the picture for the board and the folks in the public, before you will be some various slides regarding past population and projections for population within Lexington County. As you see the color schemes, your darker reds, your darker oranges give you a higher density of population as opposed to your lighter colors, which is a lower density of population. In 2010, our population in Lexington County was 262,391. In 2020, the census population was 293,991. As we go through these slides, you'll see how the growth is projected throughout the county to include areas within Lexington and Richland School District 5. Going to 2030, estimated population is above 380,000. 2040, 460, almost 470,000. Into 2050, almost 600,000 folks projected within Lexington County. Each month we present data to our Planning Commission. We do show our Planning Commission past data and current data with our stick-built homes or site-built homes and mobile homes. This is a 14-year trend specifically to mobile home and manufactured homes. You can kind of see where this has steady growth up until 2020. We had a spike with the COVID year, but the growth has been maintained even after 2020. This is just a highlighted version from 2014 to 2023 to kind of give you an idea of the numbers per month. And we do give a quarterly report to our Planning Commission. Currently through fourth quarter of this year, we have 98 permits through 1 month. This is through October. We're on pace to have roughly 1,400 single-family residential permits within Lexington County. Keep in mind, these are mostly unincorporated numbers for Lexington County with building permits. However, we do issue building permits within the town limits of Chapin, which are encompassed within Lexington School District 5, Lexington Richland 5. Manufactured home permits, again, the data through 2023 in the past years, we're on pace for about 400 mobile homes within Lexington County this year. Each month we provide data to our Planning Commission, what we refer to as pipeline maps. Pipeline maps are projects that have submitted full engineering plans for review. This is where projects have their plans for infrastructure, clearing and grading, which is the first step to actually put houses on the ground. We keep a year-long database that we provide to our Planning Commission members. You'll see each one of them are color-coded. If they are in red, they're located within a municipality. If they are green, they are pre-moratorium, which is 2021. If they're blue, they're post-moratorium regulated subdivisions after 2021. Just to call out a couple developments within Lexington and Richland 5, you'll see these as a star. There's one Westlake Estates, which is off of Lake Tide Road in Chapin, which is about a 40-acre development. Also one off of Johns Creek, which is also within the Chapin area. And these are from the last 12 months. Within this data we provide Planning Commission, you can see the total number of lots from the previous year, which was 3,790. This is just more graphics on the number of pipeline lots we have received within the past year. And for planning purposes, the school district can go back to our meeting portals within our county website. The meeting portals do have past Planning Commission meetings, which do include past pipeline maps, past data, and even projects that are submitted per council district. We do have the pipeline maps also available online now. We have the month pipeline map for each Planning Commission. We also have an interactive map where you can go back and research historical data for pipeline lots for several years past. For Lexington Richland School District 5, since January 1st of 2021 through the end of September, we've pulled the various subdivisions that have been submitted as a pipeline subdivision. The total number of lots we're looking at over the past almost two and a half years is 980 lots. What is council doing to address growth and development within Lexington County? There's several ordinances we've started with county council. One is back in 2018. Basically, this looked at the ways we could mandate or reduce the amount of residential density per developments. This was adopted in May of 2021, which basically capped the single-family homes to a maximum of 4 dwelling units per acre countywide. 2102 was the moratorium that was enacted by council in 2021 for staff to review our land development code specific to zoning and landscape and open space. Prior to the ordinance being adopted for the moratorium, we had roughly 2,500 lots already in the pipeline for development. Prior to the adoption of the moratorium, we received another 2,800 lots for development. Throughout this process, we're going through a comprehensive plan update with the county. This is the first major comprehensive plan Lexington County went through since the late 1990s. Basically, this is a roadmap for future growth and development within Lexington County. One key piece to this comprehensive plan is it did recommend a code analysis and rewrite for our potential development codes, which staff is working with the vendor now to go through that code analysis. The comprehensive plan is available online. There's a link on the website with the presentation. We had several amendments to the zoning ordinance in lieu of the moratorium. We adopted a Lake Murray residential overlay, which added additional open space provisions and more restrictive density requirements within the Lake Murray area of Lexington County. We also had additional provisions for an agricultural overlay district, which has some buffer and protection areas for agricultural activities. Staff even council even reviewed some of our regulations regarding apartments. We also did some revisions to our landscape and open space. The key piece of this is council adopted provisions for additional trophy tree protection, as well as increase the open space to 20% for new residential developments countywide. For the Lake Murray Overlay District, council also added a sliding scale for open space. So the larger lots, the lesser amount of open space, the smaller lots, the more open space that would be required. Just some graphics on the screen for you to show the location of the Agricultural Overlay District that was approved in 2021, and the Lake Murray Overlay District, which again encompasses a large portion of Lexington Richland 5 within Lexington County. Council is also looking at some amendments to our land development manual, particularly the limits of clearing for residential developments. They passed an update to this back in 2021 as well, capping residential subdivisions to only allow 20 acres of clearance at one time. Before you today is the main topic is ordinances 2314 and 2315, which addresses concurrency for new residential developments. County Council wanted to assure adequate public services for new developments in Lexington County due to our substantial growth and development. We have received certain measurables from fire service, EMS, and solid waste management, and we're still working with our local law enforcement to find measurables to review these new developments. We do understand that local school districts cannot provide a yes or no. However, we would like feedback from the school districts on resources available for new developments. Our county administrator is coordinating with each individual school district to provide representation to meet and develop a questionnaire that we can provide to each school district per development to gain feedback as far as if portables are available, the staffing, et cetera, for county council and staff to make a determination if ensuring adequate resources are available for new developments. Just some additional incentives that county council is going through right now. We do have, again, the code analysis and assessment, which is currently undergoing with our Clarion, who is our consultant. They actually were the same company that prepared our comprehensive plan. We're looking at a holistic approach for apartments and multifamily. Also, we're looking at some additional changes to our zoning ordinance to further review density within the county, as well as several other instances with our open space regulations for additional protection of open space. We actually had a tree canopy survey completed through a grant program with the South Carolina Forestry Commission to hopefully have some tree canopy coverage requirements for new residential developments. One thing not listed in your packet was in 2020, we went through a massive rezoning project within the Chapin area of the county. County Council asked us to review 80 roads within the Chapin area to potentially rezone to have a more restrictive density. 51 of those 80 roads actually received a more restrictive street classification 27 of those were reduced to allow 1 dwelling unit per acre. 14 of those roads were reduced to having only 2 dwelling units per acre. So as you can see, council has been very active in trying to adjust some of our development regulations to combat some of the growth and development we're having in Lexington County. And again, we just want some time before this evening to kind of go over the 2 concurrency ordinances and what process we're looking at moving forward with those. Any questions?
Thank you very much, Mr. Derrick. I appreciate this presentation, and I also appreciate you made a clarification on the involvement or the role of the public school districts with the ordinance. And I know that there has been some confusion over what the role would be and whether or not the school districts would have a yes or no vote. I had several conversations with the chair of county council, and I know that in your public committee meetings on December 6th, this came up, and I appreciate that clarification on what our role is and what county council's role is. I've gotten a lot of questions about that, so thank you very much for that. Do we have any questions for Mr. Derrick? Ms. Huddle?
Do you envision any type of questionnaire to try to keep it as objective as possible, like asking about the portables, that kind of thing?
Yes, ma'am. We're developing a work group with a representative from each school district, Lexington 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, and we're going to work with those folks to develop that questionnaire so it'll be basically consistent across the board for all school districts.
Any other questions? Mr. Satterfield?
Yeah, Mr. Derrick, do you live in Lexington or Chapin?
I live in Lexington.
You live in Lexington. Well, I will tell you, we are just overrun in Chapin, but anytime I get discouraged with the traffic in Chapin, I go over to Lexington, and I feel a little better. I wish that, I know that nobody could anticipate such growth, and it's gone crazy, so I hope that you all can, I appreciate that y'all are making the effort here to try to get a handle on some of this. I was talking to one developer in Chapin that was saying that he can't further his development because he can't get enough water pressure because they're growing at and he has a huge subdivision waiting to go in. But I appreciate the efforts that you all are putting toward this.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Anyone else? I echo Mr. Satterfield. I think that it is very evident that Lexington County as a whole is growing very fast, and we just need to make sure that we can keep up with the public services. Public schools, we obviously are trying to make sure that we can keep up with the capacity in all of our schools. So I would encourage, and I'm glad that we were able to have this conversation. I think it's important for the county and the school districts to have continued collaboration so that we're always on the same page and we can help you and you can help us, and we're overall serving the everyone in Lexington County and Richland County, and we're lucky we get 2 counties. So thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Thank y'all for having me. Thank you.
All right, that moves us to item 19 on our agenda, which is the fiscal 2023 annual comprehensive financial report as seen in Exhibit K. Dr. Ross.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Members of the board, we ask that our CFO, Ms. Madison Wilkerson, I'm going to get it right, come forward to present our audit.
Thank you. Good evening. I'd like to invite Josh Garvin up. He is a partner with Manley Garvin. He is coming here tonight to present the financial statement audit report for fiscal year 2023. The administration has worked closely with Josh and his colleague Luke Vickery over the past several months to complete the annual comprehensive financial report. On behalf of the administration, I would like to thank you and your team for the support and guidance as we all work together to meet the December 1st state deadline. Thank you for being here tonight to present this report, and I'll turn it over to you. Thank you.
Well, first and foremost, Dr. Ross and board, I appreciate the opportunity to be here. I said we, and that was intentional. Luke Vickery should be here tonight, but his wife is due to have their second child any day now. She had contractions over the weekend, so I told him to stay at home, and I would take care of it. But again, I appreciate the opportunity to be here tonight. I understand that we are here tonight to discuss the 6/30 2023 audit process that we have completed. We have completed that audit process and issued our opinion, which I'll get into in a minute. You should have 3 documents in front of you. One is the big bound audit report. This is affectionately known as an annual comprehensive financial report, an ACFR, which gets submitted to the GFOA for a certificate of achievement in financial reporting each year. The second document that you have in front of you is a stapled document that'll have our letterhead right on the front. This is a board packet that we put together. Rather than putting you through this document, this gives you a plain English version of the audit process. Gives you talks about our responsibilities as your external auditors, but also talks about your responsibilities as board members. And so if I were you, this is where I would encourage you guys to start as you get comfortable with the audit process and again, responsibilities, so on and so forth. The third document is where we'll spend the bulk of our time tonight. This is a 3-page stapled document that really is just an overview of where we landed at the conclusion of the audit process. So without further ado, I'll jump right in. The audit of the financial statements has concluded. As you know, the information is a bit stale. You guys are smart people. You guys get an update on the finances at every board meeting. So I don't talk generally about the specifics of the audit process, the numbers so much as I do about the overall objective of the audit and what happened. So we have issued an unmodified opinion on the fairness of the financial statements for the district. We issued that opinion on November 29th, which is, again, a couple of days prior to this meeting. That's well within the guidelines as set out by the State Department of Education. You say, Josh, what does an unmodified opinion mean? Unmodified opinion in the world of independent auditing is just a clean opinion. That is the highest level of audit opinion that you can receive from your external auditors. What I do talk a little bit about, and what normally most boards want to talk about, is what happened in my general fund. So what you'll see is that your general fund balance increased approximately $3.9 million. An increase in fund balance is just a fancy way of saying your net income within the general fund was an increase of about $3.9 million. I will switch to the second page of the stapled document. This document provides you a budget to actual analysis, revenues and expenditures within the general fund. Again, without reading to you, you can see that your actual revenues were $206 million, total expenditures of about $215, and then you had some transfers in because of some of the funding flexibility that the state allowed you to have during this year. So all in all, your net change in fund balance, or your bottom line to the general fund, was an increase of about $3.9 million. And then the final page of that stapled report is something that we've come up with and given to our boards that they seem to enjoy, is a trend analysis as to where we've been over the last several years. So this trend analysis gives you the numbers from 2019 through 2023. What you'll see is revenues and expenses. Make no mistake, you guys are aware that this district and the counties that incorporate this district have been growing, and you'll see that in these numbers. One thing I do want to draw attention to is that the fund balance, the GFOA, the Government Finance Officers Association, generally recommend to maintain a fund balance of somewhere in the neighborhood of 2 to 5 months of operating expenditures. You'll see in that trend analysis, you guys are sitting right about 3 months of operating expenditures within your fund balance. So certainly within that recommendation. So a clean opinion on the financial statements. The other things that we have to do as external auditors for you guys is we have to also provide what we call our yellow book opinion. Yellow book opinion is just a report on internal control over financial reporting and compliance with laws and regulations. If we were to run into anything that we found that led to, by definition, a significant deficiency or material weakness, we would be required by the auditing standards to put that in writing in that yellow book report. And those yellow book reports are at the back of the ACFR. I'm happy to report tonight, we did not find anything in internal control or violations of laws or compliance with laws or regulations that we felt rose to that level that would be required to be put into this report. And then the third and final opinion that we are required to provide is what's known as the single audit. A single audit is required for any entity who receives and expends greater than $750,000 worth of federal funds in any given year. As you know, you guys receive well in excess of that, and so I think the total federal expenditures were just south of $25 million. And so the audit guidelines require that we come in and select major programs as defined by the auditing standards. We actually had to test 3 major programs: Title I, the COVID ESSER money, as well as the Magnet School Assistance Program. We tested all 3 of those programs and did not find anything that would result in a finding as related to the single audit. So a clean opinion on your financial statements as a whole. They are fairly presented in all material respects. A clean opinion on your internal control over financial reporting, and then a clean opinion as well on your single audit. So I think I would be remiss if I didn't mention Madison and the team here. This is a very, very strong team, one of the strongest that I've worked with in my almost 25-year career. This is what we do at Manley Garvin. We specialize in governments and not-for-profits, and it's been a pleasure to jump in a little late. Got a little late start, which is why the report was dated so close to the deadline. We'll certainly make that a little more smooth process next year as we've got our feet in the door now and know what to expect and how to get in here. Any questions or concerns that I can address?
Any questions? Mr. Scully?
Yeah, first of all, thank you so much for the work that you've done and for jumping in so late.
Yeah, absolutely.
We really appreciate that. And thank you for your comments regarding our financial office and Ms. Madison. We've heard that a couple of times this year, and we very much appreciate her work and her team's work. Quick question about the, am I understanding this correctly? So when looking at your financial statement, I guess your cash flow, my question is, it looks like our operating cash flow would actually be negative. Is that accurate?
So for 2023, if you read that just in context, yes, that would appear that way. The reason that I would, if I were in your position, I would caveat that a little bit, and Madison can speak to it as well, is some of the funding flexibility that I mentioned with respect to the special revenue monies that are received. For 2023, there was flexibility that allowed that to be transferred into the general fund, and it's really just the semantics of the way that it was presented in the current year. Is that fair?
Yes, sir.
Okay, thank you.
Anyone else? Ms. Huddle?
Yes.
This may be related to that. The $3.5 million that we moved from the general fund, the fund balance, the ending fund balance of $56 million, that was after we moved the $3.5 million, correct?
No, I'm sorry. The 56 million includes that 3.5. So if you go to, I'll try to find it in here. Let's see if we can all hopefully flip together. Make sure I'm on the right page. Do I need to go this way? Thank you. Sorry, let's. Okay, so if we go to pages 16 and 17 of your full ACFR, you will see on page 17, you'll see the general fund, and you'll see the categories of the general fund. So we've got non-spendable of the 3.6, restricted 0, assigned of 9.9, and then unassigned of 42 million. 42.5 roughly, for a total of 56 million. And then you can find in the notes to the financial statements actually the description of what that assignment is. And do you know what page that is?
That's probably cool. If you check it this way.
Yes, looks like on page 57 in the, again, in the same document under the notes section regarding fund balance, it states the assignment. So as of June 30, the district has set aside $2.8 million for construction at Irmo High School, $543,000 for salaries for 6 full-time equivalent positions for critical areas, $3 million for employee retention incentives, and $3.5 million for potential future capital needs. So the total assigned fund balance as of June 30, 2023 is $9.9 million.
So it's still in, I thought the reason we were voting when we were pushed to vote was to get it, go ahead and get it moved. So it's still in the operating fund on this report, it's in the 56?
Yes, ma'am. So it was meant to assign it for a purpose, not necessarily to move it out of the general fund, but to assign it for a purpose. When we do find the purpose, we will then transfer it from the general fund to the capital projects fund.
Okay, so it's still, as of today, in the general fund?
Assigned in the general fund, yes, ma'am.
Okay, so it's assigned in the general fund, okay. Unless anybody else has some questions, I have a couple others.
Anyone else? All right, Ms. Huffman.
Okay, on page 56, the 144, well, first of all, I have a question, because I think these numbers are flipped. The debt service fund is showing at 80,722,000, and the capital projects fund is showing at 144. I think those numbers are flipped.
Page 56 of the.
Yes, 56, the interfund receivables. You guys don't have to answer that question right now, because I realize you got, but I would suggest you take a look at it. Because if you look at last year's financial report, the debt service fund last year was exactly the same amount, 144,505. So I think those numbers may be flipped, or they were flipped last year. But okay, so that's y'all don't have to answer that question right now. But the other question I have is, in the notes at the bottom, it says all interfund balances are expected to be repaid within 1 year from the date of the financial statements. That number is exactly the same, which tells me it hasn't been repaid within 1 year. If you look at last year's report, page 53 of last year.
Again, we'll have to take a
Okay.
look at it. I don't know offhand.
Okay.
I think, to give a generalization, I think that's a pretty standard disclosure, because if there was no intent or ability to pay that back, they wouldn't like, the GFOA would not like them classified as interfund balances back and forth. It's probably, again, not to make light or be dismissive of a comment, it's probably just the semantics of the way that it's presented.
I mean, I realize y'all can't, and I apologize, we had a ton of stuff on our agenda.
No worries.
And I did not get to this until this morning. Can you guys just let us know, maybe through Ms. Hines, what you guys find out?
For sure.
On both of those?
We can.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? Mr. Scully.
This is a real basic, quick question. Our fund balance, is that an interest-bearing account by chance?
So I get this question a lot, not about necessarily the interest-bearing account nature of it, but your fund balance is actually different than your cash balance, where your cash is
Okay.
held. And so your fund balance is, if you took all your assets and all your less your liabilities, that's what's left over. That doesn't necessarily mean it's all, your cash balances are exactly the same.
Okay.
But I'll let Madison talk about interest-bearing.
But yeah, if we just want to talk about cash in general, it is interest-bearing, so we do invest in the LGIP, the local government investment pool, for really all of our funding. So that's our cash related to general fund, and then any cash proceeds that we receive from bond proceeds would also go into that LGIP, and it is interest-bearing.
Okay, so we're using that money the best we can. Okay,
Yes, sir.
thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Thank you very much, and thanks for your patience staying so late
no problem,
at our
no
meeting.
problem.
We appreciate it. Good luck to your
Yeah,
partners.
I appreciate
and,
your
well,
time.
his wife.
We'll
Thank
get those
you.
questions answered for you.
All right, have a
Thanks,
good one.
guys.
All right, that brings us to number 20 on our discussion agenda. That is the 5-year master facilities plan financing update.
Thank you. I'm asking Ms. Wilkerson to stay at the podium there, and we thank Ms. Franny Hauser for being here for Reforma. Also, I want to thank Leanne and Connie. Thank you all so much for being here, supporting Ms. Wilkerson in the work. We know there's a lot of hours that go into putting this together, and we certainly appreciate your hard work. As was stated, we wanted to give an update on our 5-year master facilities plan. As the state law, state statute outlines that we're promote the educational interests of the district, and our goal is to create a list of capital projects for our school district that would be considered as a part of the 5-year plan as approved by the board. We had 5 major elements that went into this planning: community analysis, enrollment projections, facilities conditions assessment, instructional plan review, and tonight we are addressing the financing plan. As a reminder, when we looked at community analysis, and we saw it today from Mr. Robbie Derrick, we see that there's a great change in our community. 10 years ago, 25.5% of all in-person or student enrollment was in the Chapin schools. The largest in-person enrollment was in Dutch Fork. Well, as of last year's 135th day numbers, we see that Dutch Fork is now has the lowest in-person enrollment, and Chapin has the highest. As we look at our plan, our goal is to, with these options, do we build more schools in the Chapin area, or do we fix, fill, and finance our existing schools? And so our plan was to fix, fill, and finance. And going through that, we did a facilities condition assessment. We brought in a MPS to evaluate all of our buildings in our district. They have a schedule, a chart from 1 to 5. These represent individual issues, but also they average all of these out. 5 being something that's brand new, a like new condition. 1 is inoperable, and so 3 is kind of like that normal average wear and tear. If you look at our facilities in terms of their average rating, you can see the number of buildings in our district that scored 2, the number that scored 3, and those that were scored on average 4. Not to say that not ones or issues at any of these facilities, but what they average out in their system. We also talked about potential instructional additions that we would like to discuss. We're Dutch Fork High School, building off of this STEM program with IT or artificial intelligence, a fine arts center at Chapin High School, small business incubator at Irma High School, and the residential and commercial construction lab at the Center for Advanced Technical Studies. We talked about how we would fill our schools with a plan to create 5 middle schools that would help us in filling those. And so tonight, we're going to be looking at options of financing. We are currently developing 3 options to fix, fill, and finance our schools. Option A would look at only addressing the 1-rated items as funding allows, using our existing buildings. Option 2 would look at addressing or prioritizing all 2-rated buildings and security upgrades as funding allows, to have our instructional upgrades, build a new Dutch Fork Elementary School. We don't have estimates on these projects at this time. Our goal is by the workshop to get more details. Option C would be prioritizing all 2 and 3 rated buildings and security upgrades as funding allows, and then the instructional upgrades, building a new Dutch Fork Elementary for the field options, and expanding on Lake Murray Elementary. But what we can talk about tonight is how we would finance these potential options. In option A, $15 million would be our plus our 8% debt capacity. That would be what we would have in our annual maintenance. Option B, $240 million plus our $15 million of annual maintenance. and option C, $343 million plus our $15 million annual maintenance. You can see what we have estimated to be the additional cost for these options. And so I would like to turn it over to Ms. Wilkerson now. These figures are based on debt capacity, again, not estimated cost of projects. So we're still working on the fix and field process, but tonight is about finance and those particular options. So I'm going to turn it over to Ms. Wilkerson to go over these particular options.
Thank you, Dr. Ross. I will like to add that Mr. Jay Glover is also joining us virtually. Hopefully, he is still tuned in. So I will turn it over to him in just a minute. We also, of course, have Franny Heiser here from Burr Foreman. She's our bond attorney. So the task at hand here was to look at our different financing options. And again, as Dr. Ross mentioned, this was based on, what does our capacity from a financing standpoint look at, not necessarily what does what do these items pay for necessarily? So we looked at, no bond, option A would be no bond referendum. So keep really kind of doing what we've been doing for the past several years. We annually issue about $15 million worth of debt, short-term debt that we issue once a year. And that's really for our annual maintenance to continue to operate. But we do have an 8% debt capacity. That's a state statute. So in this scenario, we would not go out for bond referendum. We would look at, okay, what can we do without a bond referendum, looking at our $15 million annual maintenance, and then really trying to maximize that 8% capacity from the state level. Option B looks at, well, how much can we finance if we do go out for bond referendum in November of 2024 and do not raise our existing debt service millage. As y'all know, that is at 69.5 mils and has been for the last couple of years. So trying to maintain that and trying to not pass on a tax increase to our taxpayers, what would that scenario look at? And as Jay will go through in just a minute, he was able to look at $240 million in a bond referendum plus our annual maintenance of $15 million. And then option C was looking at a 10 mil increase. We did kind of derive from this because of the bond workshop back in March, where we talked about these different scenarios, and we did go up. We looked at keeping the millage the same at 69.5 mils, and then we looked at increasing the millage to 79.5 mils, or a 10 mil increase. So with that, we would be able to issue about $343 million in 3 tranches, and additionally the $15 million. At this time, though, I'll ask Jay, if you don't mind, jumping in and going over the next few slides.
Great, thanks, Madison. Can you all hear me okay?
Yes, thank you.
Thanks. School board members, Dr. Ross, again, Jay Glover from PFM Financial Advisors, the district's financial advisor on debt-related matters. And I appreciate you all allowing me to attend the meeting virtually. I'm going to talk about the next 3 slides, which have some graphics on them that I think will be familiar to you all as we've talked about financing scenarios in the past. If you can flip to the next slide, I think it's labeled no bond referendum, 8% debt only. As you can see here in the graphic, this scenario would allow you to issue your $15 million for annual maintenance. And then between FYs 2026 and 2032, you're able to issue about $8 to $16 million a year of additional debt within your 8% debt capacity and your 69.5 mil debt service millage. And then really when the bulk of the funding comes in under this scenario is when you get out in 2033 to 2039, when you can actually issue capacity. And the reason that number jumps up significantly in 2033, as you can see in the gray bars in the graphic, that's really when your existing debt is paid off. So your capacity to issue additional debt increases significantly. So while this scenario does generate significant funding over the next 15 years, that funding is really deferred for 10 years and doesn't allow you to get the bulk of the projects done over the next several years like the referendum scenarios would do. If you flip to the next slide again here, which is holding a 2024 bond referendum with still the 69.5 mil debt service target. We've estimated that you can issue about $240 million worth of debt starting in 2025. and there would be 3 installments of $80 million each that you could issue in 2025, 2026, and 2027. And as you can see in the graphic to the right, that still gives you a little bit of room in the latter years for additional debt. And you could actually layer on some 8% debt out in those latter years to generate additional funding. The reason we can't do additional referendum debt is because really the 69.5 mil limit really limits your ability to pay interest in those early years. So with no tax increase, we're estimating again about $240 million worth of debt could be issued, in addition to the $15 million a year you're getting on an annual basis. So that's really your estimated cap in terms of a no tax increase scenario. And then if we can flip to the final slide that I have here, this shows the same thing, a 2024 bond referendum, but with a 10 mil debt service increase. So that would bring your debt service millage to 79.5 mils starting in 2026. And what this scenario does is increases your capacity to about $343 million. That being with $100 million issued in 2025 and 2026, and then about $143 million issued in 2027. And the increased debt service millage gives you that capacity to issue additional debt and still have the room to pay the interest on that debt, in the early years. So you juice up your capacity about $100 million or so by increasing your debt service millage. And what that equates to on a $150,000 property is about $60 a year of tax increase by increasing that 10 mil limit. I will point out in all 3 of these graphs, you'll notice in 2024 and 2025, the debt service bars extend beyond your debt service millage graph line. And that's because, as we've discussed in the past, we're actually planning to use some of your sinking fund balance in 2024 and 2025 to retire debt to give you a little bit of additional capacity in the out years and not use 8% debt capacity in those out years. So again, those are the 3 scenarios that we looked at. These are all based on sort of current market conditions with a little bit of conservatism built in for interest rates. And they also assume 2% growth on your taxable assessed values, which we think is fairly conservative. I think historically you all have grown at a level in excess of that. And we also don't take into account any sort of reassessment process. So to the extent that your millage or your tax values would go quicker under these referendum scenarios, you would also have the ability to layer in additional 8% debt, because with the referendum approved, you would not be issuing 8% debt beyond the $15 million annually. So you'd have some flexibility with that as well. So again, I know that was a lot of numbers to digest, but happy to address any questions you all might have on these scenarios. And we could obviously run additional scenarios as might be needed.
Thank you, Jay.
All right, do I have any questions? Ms. Huddle?
Mr. Glover, would you repeat what you said about planning to use the sinking fund balance?
Yeah, so again, if you notice in your each of these graphs in 2024 and 2025, we have the millage levy line shown there based on 69.5 mils. And we're projecting debt service to be a slightly in excess of that, because we're going to be spending down your sinking fund balance to pay a portion of your debt service in those 2 years. And then after that, obviously, the millage covers your debt service payments.
What about, there will still be substantial sinking fund balance, correct, after 24 and 25?
I don't know that I would characterize it as substantial sinking fund balance, but once we use these amounts, I think there'll be a level that, we're comfortable with from sort of a policy perspective of having a balance in that fund. But I think these 2 uses amount to about, let me look at my model real quick. I think we're planning on using about $15 million of the sinking fund in those 2 years. So that will be a significant drawdown in that amount to where it is today.
So it would just be used for 24 and 25 and not anything else?
Not based on these projections. No, you can see that the actual millage line covers your debt service in each year under all three of the graphs other than 24 and 25. And keep in mind, the debt service being shown for payment in 24 is the debt service that was already issued in the past, including last year. And then as we get into next year, you'll have another issuance of debt that you'll pay off in March of 2025. So that's really a projected line being shown there in 2025 based on what we expect to issue, in the first half of next year.
Any other questions? Any more? Going once? All right, I appreciate it very much. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Glover. Dr. Ross, does that conclude? All right, so that concludes item 20. Do I have any
Ms.
more
Hines,
motions?
I know we want to get out of here, but I still have I have a question
Oh,
about.
that's what I was asking. Okay.
Oh, didn't understand. I thought
Oh,
it was
yeah.
just for him.
Yes.
So if, Dr. Ross, if you could go back, or somebody could go back to the slides that had the three options, A, B, and C. Okay. I guess I was kind of blown away by the Lexington County, what he showed us. And I looked at the, let's see, where was it? I looked at the slide that was just pipeline subdivisions, new ones, and it was 980 lots. And I know that was throughout our whole district, but I think almost all these neighborhoods, and I think all but 90 of these are in the Chapin attendance zone. So I guess, and we paid for McMillan, Paston, and Smith, and I guess I'm just trying to understand, how are we, if the process is fix, fill, how are we going to deal with a ton more students in Chapin? And I guess and I know it's late tonight, and I don't want to get into it tonight, and I know you're talking about having a facilities, but I would just like to see us not proceed so fast into a solution that's all built on fix and fill without addressing demographics and growth.
Allow us to, we're planning a workshop on the 8th, and there may be a series of workshops where we could outline this for you. Tonight, we were finishing 5 elements of all of the information that has to go in. We know it's a lot of information. We wanted to make sure you were presented with community information, with facility information, with instructional information, and tonight, finance information. Well, we would ask that on the 8th, we'll start a series of going through those 7 questions so you can see how we will do that. We're developing 3 different maps to show how we're going to do that with 5 middle schools to really try to decrease what we're seeing in that Chapin area. We too are worried that the pace of growth in Chapin is something that I think we have projections, but like we see every year, when the students show up, that tells the realities. As you remember, we asked for money for portables for Chapin High School. You'll hear when we come back, we're going to need those for Chapin Middle School. So all of that, so a great point, but we would ask through either this workshop or a series of workshops that as we go through those 7 questions, we use this information to answer those.
And Dr. Ross, and to the board, I would, as we kind of go through all of this, and Miss Huddle's point about the population growth in Chapin and making sure that we have that addressed, and as we talk about a bond referendum and we go through the 7 questions and we have a workshop, and you just mentioned a series of workshops, I want to make sure that we all make sure we're all on the same page and we are having the conversations, and even if that means that we have special called meetings for the workshop portion of it, so that we don't find ourselves in a situation where we're close to when we need to know if we're having a bond and information is still fluid and changing, because I feel like the last time we had bond conversations, everything was changing all up into, like, all of the information we were that we were given, or that, with input from the board or from whatever situation, everything was changing up until that August deadline. And we've been working on this for a while, so I hope that, that the administration would tell the board if we need to be more intentional about scheduling workshops, whether, I don't know what that looks like, whether we get, I hate to say we revert back to the Zoom meetings where if everybody has to go online and it's an online meeting for everyone. I don't know. I don't know what everybody else's thoughts are, but I feel like when we come in for the workshops, an hour or two goes by pretty quickly and we're given a whole bunch of information and then we leave and it's not like completed. So that's just my thoughts. I don't know if anybody else has any thoughts to that or agrees with that or disagrees with that, or if it's too late to.
I personally would like to suggest that if we're going to do a lot of workshops, that some of them are Zoom, because you lose at least an hour, probably depending on where you live, just getting here and back, and the staff has to go to all this work. So
Right.
I really think that's a great idea.
Thank you. Okay. All right. Do I have any other motions, Mr. Hogan?
I'd like to make a motion, but before I do that, I want to make sure everybody understands to please take your poinsettias home.
Can I make an announcement?
Oh my gosh.
No, real quick. Clemson won the national championship in soccer. Yes. And I would root for South Carolina if they had won it too.
All right.
Congratulations to Clemson, back to business. I'd like to make a motion that we adjourn the meeting.
A second.
Oh, Ms. Barnhart seconds? Any discussion? Are we sure? All right, I'll call for the vote. All in favor? A motion carries 7-0. We adjourn until the new year.
Thank you, Jay. Good job.
Thanks, everyone. Happy holidays.
Thank you.